but I have a different study. Now, granted, I haven't actually looked it up myself, but I heard it from Andrew Tate. He said that
Okay, what's the study? I'll look it up.
People who viewed stress as a good and necessary thing.
So if we as a collective society tend to identify whether or not someone's a woman based on how they're presenting and what they tell us, rather than looking up their skirt in the grocery store, we'd want the dictionary definition to change to be more accommodating and accurate. It's not the other way around. It's descriptive, not prescriptive.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love Sneako. Not sure I said I was a fan of Andrew Tate, but I am a fan of Andrew Tate. And I like Matt Walsh as well.
Okay, cool. So what do you like about like Tate and Sneako and whatnot? What do you like about these people?
Oh, I guess they just promote a kind of lost idea of what men should be, and nowadays I feel like that's very necessary. That's very needed in today's society, where let's be honest, a lot of men are lonely and depressed and this and that and blah blah blah. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of their problems might be solved if they just started um, going to the gym, for example. And so I think that if Tate can get you in the gym, or if Sneako can get you in the gym, then that's a really good thing.
So, okay, thus far, I literally agree with like everything you've said. Obviously, going to the gym is really beneficial. It's really good for mental health. And if you're watching videos that inspire you to go to the gym, that's also probably pretty cool. I also agree that men face a lot of unique struggles right now. Men are feeling really displaced currently, especially. There's obviously a lot of men are killing themselves. They're lonely, they're depressed, and they don't really know how to deal with this kind of shit. So there's absolutely a lot going on with men. And again, I agree that going to the gym is really a healthy thing to do. My problem is I feel like all the Sneako Tate fans come along and they're like, yeah, I really like Andrew Tate and Sneako. Because, going to the gym is good, right? There's like a billion channels you can find that encourage you to go to the gym. You can find a ton of channels that encourage you to go to the gym without it also being baked in with, like, say, Sneako's insane unhinged conspiracy theories. Like, you can find the info to go to the gym without listening to Andrew Tate rail on about how actually women are property. Like, you can do this without listening to Andrew Tate and Sneako, because for all the good shit they say about going to the gym, it's like buried under an avalanche of negative shit they say about women, about how men should act that's actually harmful for men, conspiracy theories, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would agree with you there, where it's like, yeah, you can get that information from like so many other places, but a huge factor into why men a lot of men gravitate towards Andrew Tate is because he's like way more entertaining than like the regular workout channel or something. Um and also
Yeah, but he's
I
entertaining
think
for
that
a lot of the wrong reasons. Like, I agree he's entertaining. I find Andrew Tate to be entertaining, but like, it's entertaining
yeah,
in the sense of watching somebody like spiel off and say a lot of wrong things that are harmful to men.
yeah, that's I don't know. I think that like if me, like specifically me, if I'm like poor and I'm like I don't have a girlfriend, or like I'm depressed or this and that. If like I feel like if personally me, if I disagree with what Andrew Tate says, I feel like I shouldn't worry about that, because like I shouldn't like be like Andrew Tate's wrong, because I think that okay, there's a reason why he's like way above me in life, and he's I feel like there's no really like right or wrong. There's just like he just has a different perspective because
But
he's
somebody,
reached a certain point in life.
sorry, I'm sorry for cutting you off there, but
You're good. You're good.
so I mean, everybody has different perspective. At one point, there were people who had the different perspective that actually black
He
people
also
were
noted
property.
that I am an
So like,
ape and I should go F myself.
thank you for the donation. So I mean, yeah, people have different perspectives. I agree, Andrew Tate has a different perspective. But for you to say like it's not wrong or right, it's just a different perspective. If somebody said my perspective is that black people should be used as a currency again, I would say no, you're wrong. It's not about like difference of perspective. You're just fucking wrong. So for the sake of Sneako and Andrew Tate, Granted, I have not dug super deep into finding where they've talked about like men being emotional or whatnot, but a lot of this masculine advice is delivered, and the advice baked in there is you need to suppress emotion. You need to be stoic in front of girls. Women will be turned off if you so much as shed a tear or decide to be vulnerable with your partner one time. Like, this kind of bullshit is so incredibly harmful towards men. It's insane that these
Mm.
men's rights people are the ones advocating for it.
Yeah, so yeah, that's one belief that you're pretty adamant about that I've seen. You say that this the manosphere is pushing emotional suppression, and that's actually ironic because they say that they're for men's health, but they're actually detrimenting men's health. But I would say there is some truth to that, but also they might take it too far because I think that they like, for example, Fresh and Fit, Sneako, Andrew Tate, they say that like you should never cry in front of girls or whatnot. I think that okay, if you view crying as weak, then yeah, people are probably going to see you as weak when you're crying. But I think that if you view crying as a strength and as like just a real thing, then I don't think it would be a problem. And I think that um, you can cry whenever you feel like it's needed. And
Mm-hmm.
if someone, I don't know, leaves you for that, then it's screw them. That's the wrong person to be around. So I
Well,
think
see,
that
I
they
agree
have.
with you about all this. All of this I agree with you that yeah, like if you personally are uncomfortable with crying, then like
He
don't
also
force
noted that
yourself
I
to
am an
cry.
ape and I
I'm
should
not.
go F myself.
Thank you again for the donation. Sorry, it always plays a funny sound, so I have to say thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
good.
it just seems as though it seems as though I forgot what I was just saying. Can you repeat your last point there? I'm sorry.
Crying, emotional
Right, right,
suppression.
right. Now I remember. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So as far as the emotional suppression thing, I've never been of the opinion that like men and women should cry equal amounts. It's more so getting rid of the expectation that you're a man, so you shouldn't cry. It's not fair that men and women both have roughly equal amounts of emotions, but yet only one side is expected to keep that all bottled up, which literally just worsens your mental health, makes you more susceptible to stress and depression. If you're under a lot of persistent stress, that raises your risk of cancer. I mean, we're talking all
Right.
kinds of potential risks here that it's so detrimental for men to suppress emotion. And I know that you're saying that like some guys take it too far, and I agree with that, but like they've done surveys of over 4,000 men all over the West, whether we're talking Australia, Canada, the US, and a multitude of those men, over 50%, have said that they have experienced times where they have suppressed emotion for the sake of appearing manly. So, like,
Mm.
when we talk about men's struggles, which is what Tate and Sneako do a lot, I get it because men are fucked right now. Men are having a really tough time. I am not one of these guys that
Right.
are like, men are all just patriarchal monsters. Like, that's fucking stupid. Men have tough shit that they're dealing with, but telling them to just further suppress emotion is just making it worse.
Yeah, okay. So you said something about stress and cancer and how, when people or when men mostly when they try to suppress their emotions for the sake of their image, they're
I'm trying to
more
make
likely to get more stress and then more likely to even get cancer. Um, but I have a different study. Now, granted, I haven't actually looked it up myself, but I heard it from Andrew Tate.
Okay, what's the
Um,
study? I'll look it up.
he said that people who viewed stress as a good and necessary thing uh, developed way less problems that stress caused rather than people who viewed stress as a bad thing. So when you're using the argument of stress causes cancer, okay, well, some of that is probably from the way that they view stress. They view stress through the lens of, oh, stress is bad and I should avoid stress. But for people who think that stress is good and necessary for growth, they have way less problems. So that was the study that
I'm looking
he
at it now, and yeah, you do have so this was from Stanford, 2015. Embracing stress is more important than reducing stress. So I mean, sure, yeah, maybe that's a good way to look at things also. That yeah, like there and that's shit I've said as well. Like, hey, there are still gonna be times where, yeah, you're gonna have to suck it the fuck up. There's still gonna be
Yeah,
times where you need to deal with it because life is life and it's unfair and you might be stressed, but you gotta get through it because there's more important end goals here. Like, again, my opinion is not because men are encouraged to suppress emotions, they should be breaking down crying and showing emotion every single chance they get anytime they feel even slightly sad. It's just that like
yeah,
this idea that because you're a man you need to keep it suppressed is really a problem. So I agree, like yeah, if you want to work on changing the view that one has of stress, I think that's a great approach to take. But come on, that's not what Andrew Tate is doing. That's not what Sneako's doing. I mean, I'm
that's not
trying to find
necessarily
this.
what
I'm
they.
trying to find the clip because I had this in my notes for the Sneako debate a while back, but I'm trying to find this still. It was on TikTok. I think it was removed. But where Sneako's talking about how men don't need therapy, they just need like an older brother to punch them. Like that's not a
Yeah,
healthy way
well,
to deal with stress.
okay, yeah, about that. So I think that therapy is mostly. I mean, I haven't uh, gone to a personal therapist ever, but actually, maybe I don't know. Not really. There was one time where we had like family counseling, or whatever, but I don't really remember that. But I feel like therapy is mostly a scam um because a lot of times therapists act like or they kind of like replace the role as a friend. So they kind of like act like your friend, but if you're paying a friend, then it's not really a friend, is it?
Well,
And
because you're
a
not
lot
just
of
paying. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you. Please continue.
oh, a lot of times, like a lot of times, and especially with women, I've seen this a lot in my personal experience, where it's like they go through something just like really minor at work or something or at school or whatever. So, someone said something to them, and then their first like thought is to go vent to their therapist. So their therapist is replacing a friend rather than actually solving your problem. So the therapist actually makes you rely on the therapist,
No,
you know.
this is just a misunderstanding. I'm not even shitting on you because I get why you would have that misunderstanding. So a therapist is not supposed to just be like your buddy. A therapist is supposed to be somebody who, one, has a legal obligation to your confidentiality, which I think is really valuable. And two, it's not just someone sitting there just like, oh, well, how did that make you feel? Okay, how does that make you feel? This is why a lot of times therapy is called cognitive behavioral therapy because you vent, you talk about your problems, and your therapist is giving you the best advice based on medical research that can improve your situation. Or if there's a situation outside of your control that you cannot improve, then the therapist is going to give you ways to think about these things to make it more manageable. If anything, when you're talking about embracing stress rather than trying to reduce it, going to a therapist can help you learn how to utilize stressful situations rather than just crumbling under them. And one other thing I'll add is I've been looking through this article that you brought up that Tate cited, and again, I'm not disputing it. It does seem to be that if you embrace stress, it's a really positive thing. But it also says there is a reason stress has a bad reputation, and part of it is the evidence that chronic and traumatic stress can increase the risk of illness, depression, and early mortality. So, choosing to see the upside of stress isn't about denying the fact that stress can be harmful. It's about trying to balance your mindset so that you feel less overwhelmed and hopeless about the fact that your life is stressful. So, if we're going to talk about like CBD, cognitive behavioral therapy, that's where you're going to learn that cognitive shit. You're going to learn how to manage this. And so even the article that Tate brought up still is acknowledging that like, yeah, chronic consistent stress, which is you're at a much higher risk of if you have been suppressing emotions for a long time, which a lot of men have, then that can be really, really harmful.
Okay. I
He
have a
also noted
question.
that I am
Do
an ape
you
and I should go
think,
F myself.
or I guess, do you think that Hustlers University by Andrew Tate or created the Creativity Kit by Sneako, do you think that those are scams?
I have not done enough research to even give you an opinion on that. I'm not
Okay.
comfortable really speaking on that.
Okay. Uh,
Wait, did I say
so
CBD?
yeah, you
Sorry.
said CBD.
I meant CBT. My bad, okay?
Oh, okay, okay.
Sorry, CBT,
Um,
cognitive behavioral therapy. CBD is
okay, is weed. Yeah.
well, I like CBD too, so my bad. Go ahead though.
Um, I forget what was my point. Yeah, I was gonna say like because maybe you would have said like, oh yeah, Hustlers University is a scam or whatever, and I would have said like, oh well, if that's a scam, then why isn't therapy a scam? Because it's because you're saying that therapy can be good because of the medical and factual information that the therapist can give you,
Hmm.
but we all know that you can get that free on the internet.
Come on, you just told me that you can go that Tate and Sneako are valuable because they're encouraging people to get to the gym, but you can get that from anywhere on the internet. A therapist, no.
Yeah.
Going through and reading an article from like WikiHow that says, "Hey, if you're really stressed, then try, thinking about your happy place or whatever the fuck," is not going to be the same as sitting down with a therapist who you've now been going to for several times, who has a general understanding of your own personal situation and can give you curated advice that is most applicable for you specifically. It's true that some of the more broad advice might be able to be found on the internet, but the way to actually apply that to your own thinking, personally and uniquely for you, is something that a therapist can bring to the table there. I mean, when I first started going to therapy, that was when I remember my therapist gave me a little paper that showed like the cycle of OCD and how it worked. And even that like really helped me try to move on because then I realized when I was getting stuck in that OCD cycle. Now, could I have gone and found that online? Yeah, probably. However, it's a lot different when you're sitting down with somebody who knows your situation, who knows the specific types of things you deal with, and then not only just throws you a piece of paper with a couple tips on it, but has also talked to you for an hour and is helping you sort of navigate these emotions so that you can deal with them in a more healthy way.
Okay. Would you advocate for more of like a would you advocate for like therapy being free to the people?
Oh, yeah, of course. I think that there needs to be a public option for health related shit.
Okay. Yeah, I assume that you would take that position. Yeah. Um yeah, I guess I mean, so here's the thing with the OCD point that you said, um how therapy how having a therapist can make you or help you realize something that's going on in your life that you're not really aware of, and then realizing that it's real can then accelerate you to it can push you to solve it, because how can you solve something that you don't even know is there?
Right.
And but the thing is, I feel like there's so, and I'm saying I feel like, which I know is stupid, but I feel like uh a lot of times there's like there are like things that like doctors or therapists will tell a person, for example, you have ADHD or you have depression or you have like, I don't know, it could be anything.
Hmm.
And then that actually ends up being bad for them, because there are some people that um, grow up their whole lives to be perfectly fine, uh, I guess physically, for this example. They're like perfectly fine physically, and then like when they're 40 years old, they get told by a doctor that like they had this certain physical condition that
Hmm.
would like usually hinder someone's ability to walk or something, but like they didn't know that, and so they were just walking around like it's fine. But if they were told that at a younger age, they would have probably felt more limited
Well,
and
that could
done
have been
less.
that could even be a result of stress, right? I mean, like obviously we know that placebo has a pretty powerful effect. I mean, I myself have had multiple experiences with the placebo effect. Okay, and it is absolutely crazy. But just if
Wait,
there
I'm not
can,
sure what that. Could you explain placebo effect? I'm not sure what that is.
yeah, it's just basically when you mentally think of something or expect something, then you're more likely to trick yourself into believing that that thing is working. So, like, an example is a while back, I thought I'd eaten edibles, right? But I actually had forgotten to eat edibles and I'd only taken my supplement. So, an hour or so goes by and I kept feeling like I was getting a little bit high and wondering, though, why it was like taking a little slower. And then I realized I never even took the weed to begin with. But there was a time where I was literally sitting on the couch, like, okay, yeah, I'm starting to feel a little bit high here. And it was just placebo. It's just my brain tricking me. So that can happen. So maybe if you don't have an awareness that you have this illness, so you're not stressed about it, so you keep on going. Maybe, but like, there's also plenty of people that don't know they have certain issues, and it does hinder them throughout their life. How many people do you know who talk about how I had no idea I had ADHD growing up, and now that I've been diagnosed and treated, my God, I wish I had done this sooner. Like, you can get through shit with
Mhm.
illnesses or whatever, but it doesn't mean that that's as good as it gets, I guess.
Well, I remember being told, uh, kind of at a young age, like I think it was like 10 years old or something. I think I remember being told by a doctor that I had ADHD, and that didn't help me at all. Like it's just like to me that just made it so like, oh, I thought ADHD was like a specific thing that some people go through, but you're just now it's just like a general thing that like so many people fit in the category of like the spectrum of ADHD, and it's just like this stupid thing. I just didn't realize how that was helpful at all by
Well,
telling
it's
me that I
helpful
had.
because if you know the unique problem that you're dealing with, there's usually unique ways to go about improving that problem. So like I don't think it's
Okay,
stupid that it's there's a spectrum of it. There's going to be like more extreme ADHD versus like maybe just a little bit of it. I mean, that's not really stupid. That's just providing more nuance.
okay, yeah, I think that uh, it would be better to not box people in to like terms like ADHD and rather maybe replace ADHD with like, I don't know, maybe this person is uh susceptible to just being distracted easily. I feel like
That we're
that's
not boxing
that
people in. You're giving them a diagnosis of a real problem. Like that's like saying like, why do we need to say that people with cancer have cancer? Like why are we putting them in this box? We're not
well
putting
no
anybody in a
that
box. Nobody's saying because you have ADHD you're incapable of doing this shit. And ADHD is also not just being easily distracted. Even being easily
okay.
distracted can be a part of it. However, ADHD is usually more intense with motivation. It's a problem with actually implementing tasks because you tend to just think about it. And rather than doing it, you procrastinate, and that causes stress to grow. And then the thing that you've been procrastinating on seems to get bigger and bigger in your mind. It's a literal problem with the way that your brain goes about with executive function and whatnot. So it's not just like it's this pretend. Oh, hey, you get distracted because the TV was on in the background when you were trying to do your homework. Oh, here's a pill. Like that's not exactly what's happening, you know.
Okay. But I forgot I had a point. Um so I think because I think the problem comes when like because ADHD is associated with like people know ADHD to be like a mental disorder, right?
Well, I mean, it is, yeah.
Yeah, and so when people, I don't know, like have some symptoms of ADHD, then they might think that they have a mental disorder and then they're like, "Oh shoot, something's wrong with me." When in reality, it's like, "Okay, no, you're just yourself. You're just a different person."
Yeah, but you're a different person in the sense that you have a much harder time than all of your peers in completing homework and getting shit done and actually concentrating on tasks that you might not find to be very enjoyable for long periods of time. Like, we can get rid of the negative stigma surrounding it. I can agree with that. I don't think that it should be like, I have ADHD, which means I have a mental problem, which means that I am a fucking deranged, insane person. Like, no, I think that if we get rid of the stigma, hey, you have ADHD, means you have a tough time with implementing tasks and working memory can be affected, and it's just really more challenging. The main way to summarize ADHD is that you tend to prioritize activities that you find to be stimulating rather than activities that need to be prioritized for the sake of efficiency. That's usually how ADHD works. So if you find yourself
Mhm.
consistently playing video games when you know you need to get your homework done or else you're going to be fucked tomorrow at school, you might have ADHD. Doesn't mean you do, but you might. So like we can say, hey, it's unique, it's different, you think about things differently, all of which is true. Get rid of the negative stigma, but it's still a mental illness.
Okay. Um, I think that most of the problem with that whole thinking is the fact that someone like maybe like a young child could associate with or he could be dealing with one aspect of ADHD, but like maybe not associating with like maybe like three other aspects of ADHD, but since he does one thing that has to do with ADHD, that means that he has ADHD, he uh and therefore he has all of the symptoms of ADHD. It's like you get what I'm saying? It's like an
But
umbrella
no, because
effect.
well, hold on, because I'm not trying to get you here, but remember a minute ago you were saying it was stupid that there's a spectrum of ADHD. No, if you just meet one or two of the things with ADHD, then maybe you would fall on the lower end of that spectrum. But you called that spectrum stupid a minute ago. It's not stupid.
No,
It actually
yeah,
helps bring nuance here to these conversations so that it's not, hey, everybody with ADHD is exactly the same. If you show one sign, then you have all the rest of them. There's degrees of which you can have ADHD.
hmm yeah. Um, but I'm just saying this because people kind of fundamentally, universally uh, know it to be like they don't really view it as a spectrum. They view it as like the kind of this like set thing that like
But who
everyone's
cares?
ADHD is almost like similar.
But what? Yeah, because the people with ADHD tend to have pretty similar experiences. But like,
Yeah.
why is this a problem?
Because it can box people up to also believe that like the placebo effect that you just explained. It's like they can also maybe believe that they also have other problems relating to ADHD, when in reality, if they would have never associated with the term ADHD, they would have never like thought about those other,
Yeah, but
you know,
maybe those
things.
other
And
things were a problem. Maybe them recognizing other things now is helping them to treat underlying issues. Somebody in chat saying this, but I mean I know it's true anyways that ADHD commonly has comorbidities. So it's very common if you have ADHD to also have depression or anxiety or something else. Um so like I agree that you shouldn't box people in. I agree that if you're telling anybody that, hey, you have ADHD, which means now you're incapable of doing this thing, or you're, uniquely poor, or you're really bad off now, you're not going to succeed in life. Obviously, this is just negative stigma, and we should get rid of that for sure. It doesn't mean you're a bad person or a failure or a lazy sack of shit if you have ADHD. It just means that your brain works a little different and there's ways to treat it. I mean, I agree with going about that approach, but acting like, you can kind of like just gym your way out of this or like the placebo effect. I mean, it just doesn't really seem like a very compelling argument.
well, you were just advocating for the placebo effect, and now you're not.
No, I wasn't. I was saying placebo effect is a thing for sure. However,
Yeah,
if somebody's having consistent long-term problems, I don't think that's a placebo effect. Like the diagnosis isn't going to be like, "Hey, you have ADHD," and then the guy sits down and is like, "Now I have ADHD. Wait a minute. I wonder if I also have depression. Can I have some pills for that too?" Like, no, you're going to have consistent symptoms of these things before you're able to be diagnosed with an additional mental problem that might require additional medication. So even if there was a placebo for a little while, that would wear off before you would actually meet the criteria to be diagnosed.
okay. So I guess when it comes to kids, like when kids think that they have ADHD or whatnot, don't you agree that like it's very common for kids to go through phases?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so then could you also say that them thinking that they have ADHD, they could actually grow out of that?
Oh yeah, sure. I agree that there's lots of kids that go through phases where they're just this a lot of exciting things in the world. They're young, they're new to the world. It's easy to be distracted. Sure, absolutely. Usually though, when like small children are diagnosed with ADHD, it's not the kid coming up and being like, I think I have ADHD, mom. It's usually like he has consistent problems at school with sitting still and he is unable to complete his
Yeah.
classes and he's so distracted that I'm having a hard time teaching him. Like, there's usually going to be other issues. It's not just going to be like little Timmy running up and telling you that he has a mental illness.
Yeah. But still, even like you're saying it's justified if the parents notice it, but it still could be a phase. Like if the parents notice it, that doesn't mean that it's not a phase anymore.
Oh, no, 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 I know, but I mean that like the kid is not going to have some like come up and be like, I have this mental problem. And because it's a phase, even if it were a phase, like maybe the answer isn't medication in that case, but like you're still going to need to
Yeah.
work through that because phase or not, you can't be like getting up and distracting the whole class when you're supposed to be doing schoolwork.
Okay.
And that's why you would do a test. Like that's why you're given a test. You don't just walk in, tell doctor you have ADHD, and then they just like give you some fucking amphetamines. Like it's not that easy.
Yeah. So, um,
We should probably wrap this combo up here in a minute. Do you have anything you want to say at the last any last words here?
I was hoping to actually come in and talk about transgenderism, but this was a whole different
Okay,
uh
we can talk
thing.
trans people for another like 5-10 minutes or so and see where it goes. But I do have another guy waiting, so
Okay, I would love to debate you about that. Okay, so all right. So a common theme that I've seen in your videos is, and you can correct me on this, you believe that studies and research and new modern research is should be placed above personal experience.
yeah, yeah, of course. But I think that every single human being actually thinks that in different parts of their life.
Okay, so you're saying it's kind of like it depends.
Yeah, so like if I'm trying to decide if I should cross a busy highway or not, I'm not going to go and look up a study for like likelihood of getting hit by a car while crossing a busy highway. I'm going to look around and when I see there's a clearing, I'm going to walk. That's my personal experience that I'm just going to kind of operate on. But if I'm talking about the frequency of which people are hit by cars in my local area, well, I can't just say, well, in my personal experience, I saw a couple people get hit by cars, so this is a huge problem. No, a study would be far more valuable there because it can take into account larger swaths of data, essentially, and give you a better, more reliable conclusion.
Okay. Um, okay, I guess I'll just move on to a different point. I just want to ask you a question. What is a woman?
A woman is somebody whose internal perception of themselves aligns with what we culturally view as being feminine.
Okay, so are you saying that the definition, like the Google definition of woman is wrong?
No, I think that colloquially and for a long time, woman has been pretty much identical with adult human female. But I also think that if you were to look at that definition, you'll see under the adult human female, it also talks about gender being a collection. Or wait, I always get this mixed up because it's the definition of gender, not woman. But if you look up the definition of gender, you'll see that it talks about how it's a collection of social views and attributes that we place on people.
Uh-huh. So, okay, but that doesn't dispute the fact that
The
the d-
definition says
the
it.
the definition says a woman is an adult human female, and then the dictionary also says that a female is pertaining to the sex. So that means that
Yes.
uh, a female is a woman.
Yes, that's now. I try to go about this with the terminology. Admittedly, this is not at all universal, even though I really fucking wish it would be. But whenever I say like male or female, I'm talking about sexual characteristics. So like male, okay, biology, testosterone, penis, that would be a male. But a male is not always a man, and the man refers to the internal perception you have of yourself that is informed heavily by the social constructs that we have surrounding gender. So if you're born into a world where you're always told, hey, you're a boy, you have a penis, you should wear the color blue. Wearing the color blue, being a boy liking blue, there's nothing biological there. That's social, it's an expectation. But if you're growing up in an environment in which you feel you align far more with these other types of gender expression or you don't fit into this category, yeah, you might be trans, and that might be why your internal perception differs there.
Okay. Um, but I just want to clarify that even with, I guess I don't actually think that, but like the quote woke definition of gender um is how society sees you, right? And you just said that
But
gender
hold on, that's a
is
big problem for you because you just try to make the reverse argument when you said, well, the dictionary says adult human female, but when you're walking down the street, you're looking and choosing who is a man and who is a woman, not based on genitals, not based on sex, based on their presentation, based on their gender. So if we want to talk about how this really plays out, that's my argument as to why, whether or not a woman is defined as an adult human female, the way that we actually operate in the real world doesn't quite support that notion. Somebody also sent me Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of female, and I guess B says having a gender identity that is opposite of male, made up of usually adult members of the female sex, characteristic of girls, women, or the female sex, designed for or typically used by girls or women. So, I mean, you can look through this too. It's not all the definitions, especially the more in-depth ones, do not just say like adult human female. That's the definition. Give like that's the end of it. Like, there's a lot more to it there.
Okay, but we know for a fact that that definition that you just quoted, that like they just changed that.
Maybe, yeah, but again, like somebody in chat saying this, so credit to them. But I mean, if dictionary is not prescriptive, it's descriptive. So if we
Yeah.
as a collective society tend to identify whether or not someone's a woman based on how they're presenting and what they tell us, rather than looking up their skirt in the grocery store, then the dictionary we'd want the dictionary definition to change to be more accommodating and accurate. It's not the other way around. It's descriptive, not prescriptive.
Okay, but is gender specifically like are the categories of specifically gender, are those men and women? Or does man and woman are those terms actually um in terms of gender? Because I think that man and woman, those words have like existed for a long time, but it was only since 1955 where the word gender was created.
Yeah. I mean, sure. Originally, I think gender was probably used interchangeably with sex. And like, if you say, "What's your gender?" I'm a boy. Well, you kind of assume penis as well, like the sexual characteristics. But I think that the controversy arises from people like me on the left, kind of arguing that gender shouldn't be correlated with sex, and the only reason it is because we as a society have decided to do it that way. Like, imagine if instead of, hey, you have a vagina, so I'm going to make your room the color pink, we did, hey, you have blue eyes, so I'm going to make your bedroom pink. We would have a society in which people who had blue eyes would think that it was the right thing to wear the color pink because it's social.
Yeah, but is the social aspect what determines what's a man and a woman? Or like I'm
Yes.
trying to
In that case, yes, it would be, because whether or not you're a man or a woman is going to depend on your internal perception, and that internal perception can only be formed by the external construct of gender.
okay, but I want to clarify the when you say internal, that's actually gender identity. That's not gender, right?
Well, gender identity would be, yeah, that's their gender. They can have a
Well,
gender
not
identity and then they
actually
would
though, because
express their gender in different ways.
yeah, there's gender expression and there's gender identity, but definitionally, if you want to look up the definition of gender, gender is how society sees you. So society determines your gender.
Well, society creates the social construct of gender, which is correct. So we collectively have said, hey, if you're a man, then we expect you to have a deeper voice, to have shorter hair, to wear jeans, or to wear suits. These kinds of things are oftentimes social. So because we have the external construct of gender, then people who are born with penises are categorized certain ways, so they internalize those expectations as well, which forms and shapes their internal perception of themselves. It's the same. A really good example of this is like a sports fan. I love bringing up the sports fan example because obviously there's like a physical ball and field that you play football in or whatever. But like the rules of the game, we made that up. Obviously, there's no
Hmm.
nature's biological football. Like we created that, right? So there's a
Yeah.
social construct of football or sports. And now if I say I'm a sports fan or a football fan, now I have an internal identity, an internal perception of myself that aligns with a external social construct, which in this case would be sports or it's football.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I've heard you use that analogy before, and I think that's good. Yeah, gender is a social construct, but I think that society would be way better off if we just got rid of the word gender and just use sex, because gender combines kind of like personality and like
He also noted that I am an
traits
ape and I
with
should go F
sex,
myself.
and it gets so it gets so confusing, and it's like it seems like seems like the word gender is like meant to confuse us. There's so many like if we would just get rid of the word gender,
Mhm.
so many confusion problems would be solved.
Yeah, well, or maybe we should just get rid of like sex, because it seems that gender is
Well,
at least right now serving way more utility, right? Because I can walk into a grocery store and generally tell who's a man or a woman based on gender and gender expression. I'm not looking up anybody's skirt.
but it wouldn't be because of gender, it would be because of their sex.
No, it wouldn't, because if they are, wait, no, if you have somebody with a vagina who's trying to communicate the fact that they are biologically female via wearing dresses, putting on makeup, lipstick, long hair, the makeup, lipstick, long hair, dresses part is socially constructed. We as a
Well,
society have said, hey, if you have a vagina, this is how you should present. But we don't need to
yeah,
do
that's
it on the
true.
basis of biology.
That's true, but you can still definitely tell who's a woman and who's a man, whether or not they're wearing a dress or a suit.
Sure.
That's kind of a stupid thing to say. It's like I
No,
can
because
only
that's
know
what
someone's a
is
woman.
that's the social form of things. It doesn't have to be a dress, but like we recognize clothes that are usually like feminine versus masculine. That's why there's the
But you can
clothing
definitely
shops are
recognize a
separated by
woman.
sex, right?
Yeah, but you can definitely recognize a woman if she's wearing like a man's clothing, or like so many like male typical things. Like
Maybe, but there's a lot of people, you know, that like I don't know if you've seen the videos, but like there are biological females who've been yelled at in the bathroom because they look masculine. So people think that they're like trans and invading their space. Like the meme, we can always tell who's trans and who's not, is a meme for the very reason of people say that, but they never actually can fucking tell. Like, you
okay,
say that,
well,
but how many people have you seen who's like, I can always tell? They get sent a picture of a real biological female, and then they come back and they're like, yeah, this person's trans. You can tell. Ha. It's like, no, you really can't tell. You can't tell that much.
okay, the only case where you can say that you can't tell is when you're implicating this whole ideology of transgenderism, which you have to admit, you have to understand that transgenderism is a very pseudoscience, almost like
No, it's not.
religious idea.
No, well, transgenderism isn't even a word, I don't think. But like, trans people have existed forever, right? So like,
The first transgender person was literally right after the word gender was created in
no, there were
1955.
transgender people before that, but they probably weren't called transgender because that word didn't even exist. Like you can look
So
back
you
way in
think that
ancient Rome, there were people who were trans. You can look back in the 1800s, there are people who are non-binary. You can read about stories in the early like 1930s of children struggling with gender dysphoria, reaching out to doctors, asking what to do. You can read ancient stories of people that would actually go around trying to dress in ways that was more ambiguous, or they would try to present themselves differently. So like you can look at this kind of shit. It's been throughout history. This isn't like a new pseudoscience thing.
okay, I haven't seen any of that evidence in history, but um yeah, I just don't see why if transgenderism, although that might not be a word, like I don't see why if it was always this real thing that like only now there's a huge like exponential spike in LGBTQ
Mhm.
people. Like if it was always a thing, why is only now where we have huge amounts of social contagion and social media that transgenderism has spiked exponentially?
Well, I would be a
Just
little
doesn't make
careful
sense.
about labeling this just a social contagion. I mean, there's obviously the fact that there's just more growing acceptance is going to lead to more people coming out and being willing to think more so about their gender identity and see if they really fit into those boxes, I guess. But I mean, I've also been of the opinion that, like, yeah, it's possible that there could be a social contagion element. But if that were the case, then that would be on the clinicians to make sure that they're properly diagnosing people with gender dysphoria before that person were to go under any kind of medical intervention whatsoever. So, like, even if there was a social contagion, it's more of a problem then with the medical institution making sure that they're diagnosing properly. It doesn't mean that like trans people are fake or bad. And I can send you this too. This is a Roman emperor who was trans.
Okay.
His short reign
I
was
don't.
conspicuous for sex scandals and religious controversy. Okay, let's see. Later, historians suggest that this guy, Elagabalus, I'm not even going to try, showed a disregard for Roman religious traditions and sexual taboos. He replaced the traditional head of the Roman. What does it talk about his being trans? Hold on. Religious, sexual orientation, gender identity. Here we go. The question about his sexual orientation and gender identity is confused, owing to salacious and unreliable sources. Some people state he was married 5 times. His first wife, blah, blah, blah. State the. Oh, but it's also reported that this emperor delighted in being called someone else's mistress, wife, and queen. The emperor reportedly wore makeup and wigs, preferred to be called a lady and not a lord, and supposedly offered vast sums to any physician who could provide him with a vagina. For this reason, the emperor is seen by some writers as an early transgender figure and one of the first on record as seeking sex reassignment surgery. But I understand maybe that one's a little flaky. You can also check out this one. This is transgender lives in the Middle Ages through art, literature, and medicine. And you can see that like there's Middle Age reports and whatnot of people who are trans. So this isn't like a brand new thing.
Okay, I just don't see how you could um read about someone who wants to get a vagina, who has a penis, who wants to get a vagina,
Mm-hmm.
and think that that's even remotely healthy at all. Like that's
It's probably
I
not.
just
I mean, if you're super stressed out and really uncomfortable with your own body, that probably isn't very healthy.
yeah, and the thing that you said about the social contagion thing, where you said that yeah, there may be a little social contagion aspect. I would dispute that and say it's not maybe. I would say that it's 100% social contagion is real. Like you would agree with this that like uh conservatism or like kids are just like, especially with how social media is nowadays, kids are encouraged, at least on social media, to like fit in a specific camp like before they're even like an adult.
But they're
Like they
not.
need to
It's usually the other
identify
way
as a
around. It's conservatives that say, if you have a penis, then you're a boy and you need to fit in this box, in this camp. It's usually the progressives that are saying, like, hey, just if you have a penis doesn't mean that you're a boy necessarily. It's okay to explore your gender identity.
and wait, sorry, can you repeat that? I just blanked out.
Yeah, it's more so the conservatives that are trying to put people in boxes by saying, you have a penis, you have a vagina, so you need to fit into this box. Rather, it's the progressives that are more like, hey, just if you have a penis doesn't mean you're a man necessarily. It's okay to, think more about your gender identity. But like,
Yeah,
if
I
I could
would
just add one more thing really quick, because I do need to wrap this combo up. It's been a good combo, but um,
mm,
even the thing with like social contagion, even if I were to be like, okay, fine, yeah, I guess it's like 100% there's a social contagion here. This has nothing to do with trans people. It would be equally as bad of an argument if I were to come up here and be like, hey man, do you know that some people get put on antidepressants way too soon? Depression is fake and bad and pseudoscience. No, like depression can be real. There can also be a problem with people being misdiagnosed with depression. Like these are two separate issues.
mm, yeah, sure. I mean, you could argue that transgender, whether or not social contagion exists, is it doesn't.
It doesn't speak to trans
It's
people.
yeah, it's like it doesn't dispute the fact that maybe transgenderism is real or depression is real, but I mean, I see it. I see it happen on the internet so much where kids are like most definitely put on this like camp where they like have to if they feel like they're not the gender that they're assigned to, like for example, if a kid feels like he actually wants to play with Barbies, then he's going to go online and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm actually transgender. I need to get surgery." Like that's
Yeah, but that wouldn't
horrible.
be transgender. I mean, okay, hold on, wait. It's possible that you could have just a different gender identity and then not actually have any discomfort or gender dysphoria. Then, I mean, by definition, you would be trans, sure. However, if we're talking about getting surgery or any kind of medical intervention, it's not going to just be like, I played with Barbies. It's going to be, I had persistent stress and depression surrounding my biology in the way that this seems to not align with how we socially categorize these biological characteristics with gender. This is bringing me great discomfort, and this is persistent now for 6 months. This isn't just like, here's a little boy who likes to play with Barbies. I guess he's a girl now. I have a son who has an older sister, okay? Like, he likes playing with Barbies. He likes playing with dollhouses. He puts on little gloves and says he's a princess like his older sister. I'm not going to fucking get my kid surgery, okay? It's just, that's what happens with little kids. They're growing up, they're playing around with stuff. So
Yeah,
nobody doing that,
that's
though, would be going and getting surgery.
yeah, that's fine if a kid wants to play with whatever they want to play with, because like we established, gender is a social construct, and it's stupid to be like, oh, you need to play with Barbies or you need to play with
Right.
action
And I would
figures.
never be like, no, you're a boy. Pink isn't for you. Like, that's not ever anything I do.
Yeah, yeah, that's like one of the stupidest things ever, and that's one of the things I disagree
He
with
also noted
Matt
that I
Walsh
am an
about. It's
ape
like,
and I should go F
your
myself.
kid doesn't need to freaking do this very specific gender thing. But the problem and the reason why Matt Walsh says that he would want his kid to do the things that are gender specific to him, the reason why Matt Walsh says that is because nowadays, if you like things that the opposite gender likes, then you are more likely to be, sorry to say this, but like indoctrinated to this transgender cult. It's
You're not,
actually
though. That's
like a
just like
cult.
the straw man. The straw man is like the my little boy wanted a girl Happy Meal, so now we're going to get his dick chopped off. That's like the joke, the meme. In reality, it's not like that. People just playing with dolls that are usually like, or playing with toys that are usually associated more so with like girls or feminine or whatever, does not mean they're trans. Now, if you had somebody who preferred to play with female toys, somebody who preferred to present more feminine, somebody who claimed that they didn't like feeling like a boy or that they don't feel like they're a boy, somebody who's showing extreme stress surrounding the fact that they don't feel like a boy, then like maybe then you'd have something. But it's not just going to be like little Timmy played with a doll, so now he's trans. This is just not real. So Matt Walsh is probably saying that not because like he's worried about the trans cult, but because he's like a subhuman fucking idiot. So in that case, he's probably saying it. Like that's right why he's saying it. I'd be willing to bet.
Mm. Have you seen the new video with Matt Walsh and the transgender?
I did. I'm actually going to be going over it here shortly, which I think is a
Yeah.
perfect place to end this. I really appreciate you coming on here. I'm glad the call remained respectful despite our disagreements here. And I think that this was a valuable combo.
Yeah, me too.
Have
All
a
right.
good one.
Yeah, you too.